Hey everybody, thanks for stopping in the live. I wanted to come on and talk about this particular topic. If you saw by the title, it's the psychology behind a delusional mind. So if you're new to my channel, I like to give commentary on popular topics, also just things that just cross my mind. I have a lot of conversations with a lot of different people regarding issues in their life, and then I always try to come and share my perspective with my social media platform in order to just provide advice and guidance for anybody who might be struggling with their own decision making. And so today's topic is all about the psychology behind a delusional mind. And I'm one of those people that I did not go to school for psychology. I didn't go to school for law, but I don't know, something about my personality is just that, like, I love researching topics. I love getting to the bottom of things. I'm like incredibly, I have incredible critical thinking skills, and I'm very logical for the most part. And I try to figure out like why people behave the way that they behave. I did study women's studies in college, and also in those courses, there's like some psychology components, especially when you do labor and employment relations, which was my minor. And I'm just fascinated by psychology and law in general. And so this topic is interesting to me, um, because there are people, especially those who suffer with mental health illnesses, who are delusional. And I think delusions present in a number of mental illnesses. It could present itself in bipolar disorder, it could present itself in schizophrenia, it could present itself in some things like borderline personality disorder, like delusional mind. It can present itself in a variety of things. And I think at the end of the day, it all stems from some sort of trauma that you experience in your life, and then that reaction is because of post-traumatic stress disorder. So you experience an event, and then that event triggers coping mechanisms, and those coping mechanisms lead to can develop a mental health issue as a result of a coping mechanism or some kind of imbalance in your brain, if it's like from a genetic reason. For if the reason that you are become how you were is because of genetics. So I do understand that some people who experience delusions, it's really, if you haven't looked it up, if you actually look up what a delusion is, it's that when someone creates evidence, or they have strong beliefs about things that are not true, even when there is evidence to prove that those things are false, right? So let's just say, I'm gonna just give a very basic example. Let's just say, the sky is blue, right? We all can look up in the sky and say that it's blue. Someone who's delusional might be strongly hell bent on proving that the sky is yellow, right? And to them, that reality is real, and that their main objective, and this is a very like rudimentary example, so don't take me too crazy on this. It's rudimentary, but someone who's experiencing delusions will do everything that they can to prove their narrative to be correct, despite evidence that they are incorrect. So no matter what evidence is presented to say, hey, look, here's 15 reasons why the sky is blue, someone who is delusional will say, well, here's 4 reasons why I believe the sky is yellow. And they will be adamant and really fixated on their truth. And they will begin to bend and shift narratives and evidence in order to confirm to themselves that they are right. Like, when someone is mentally unwell, they have an inability to see the forest from the trees. They have an inability to exist in a world that, like, normal people who are not mentally unwell exist in. And I think you can have empathy and compassion for those people. Like, you can look at somebody and say, okay, if 1,500 people have proven that one situation is the way it is, and this one particular person refuses to acknowledge that the situation is what it is, despite all this evidence to prove the contrary, well, then you have to start exploring whether other things are present. Does this person have the presence of mind? Is this person okay? And when you're struggling with mental health issues, if that's something that someone struggles with, it is incredibly difficult to wake up every day and just do the basic things that, like, a normal person would be able to do. Because a part of mental illness is fixation, right? You become obsessed with proving a reality that might not be real. So you start to fixate on things and obsessively compulse over things. And you will do everything you can to make this narrative that you have running in your head appear to be true. And it is something that people really struggle with. And so And I can use the example of Kim and Kanye. Like, to me, when you know that your partner struggles with a mental health issue and you don't have a mental health issue, sometimes it could become incredibly burdensome as a partner to like know that somebody is seeing the world a way that it shouldn't be seen, or that this person is easily triggered by certain actions or behaviors that you may do. And so, because you hold the power in that relationship and because you are the mentally well one, I think it's incredibly upsetting to exploit somebody who is unwell, who is incapable of seeing the forest from the trees, who is easily triggered to psychosis or to an episode. And even if you don't have a mental health background, when you're living with someone or you've seen it in your own life, like if you've seen the people have mental illnesses in your own life, you can empathize with those circumstances. You can empathize with those behaviors. And you can get to a point in your life where you say, I can see that this person is struggling in a way that a rational person would not be struggling. And when somebody has some sort of mental health issue, it's hard for them to be talked out of that, especially when they have things like schizophrenia, which is very serious. It's a very serious mental health issue where, especially when you compound that with other things like borderline personality disorder, those things can coexist with one another. And when you would combine that, it becomes very difficult for this person to process reality in the way that everybody else sees it. One of the hallmarks of schizophrenia is delusions, is believing things that are like absolutely not true. And it's believing that people are against you. It's believing that people are out to kill you. It's believing that people are out to harm you. A lot of people who suffer from schizophrenia have beliefs that people are trying to set them up, people are trying to kill them, people are trying to take them down. They have very fear-based beliefs. That all of their responses and reactions to the world are fear-based. And if you are operating at a normal level and you can see that after an extended period of time, somebody is absolutely committed to their beliefs about a situation, at some point you have to explore other avenues. You have to explore other theories behind the psychosis. Um, and that can lead you down a path of whether or not there are mental illnesses that are present. And so when I look at Kim and Kanye, that's something that I can very much so see. I can see that he struggles on a day-to-day basis, and she knows that he struggles on a day-to-day basis. She lived with this man for years. She knows what his trauma and triggers are. She knows what his trauma is based in and where it's rooted at. And she knows that she has the power as the well one in the relationship to change, she can control his behaviors based on how she pushes and triggers. you know, when you combine that fear-based behavior of schizophrenia and out to get, a lot of people who are schizophrenic are not dangerous, right? They're not violent people. They're not dangerous people. They're very afraid. They're very afraid most of their time. Most of the time, their trigger is based in fear. A lot of people are afraid of schizophrenics, but they're not dangerous people most of the time. Most of the time. However, when you combine that with other things like borderline personality disorder or sociopathy, violent behavior can present itself, whether it's self-harming or harming to other people. And if you ever saw the movie Girl Interrupted with Angelina Jolie, who is literally my favorite actress of all time, I love her. She demolishes that role in a good way of being of borderline, having borderline personality disorder combined with potential schizophrenia, but she definitely is diagnosed borderline. And what was her behaviors in that movie? It was driving people as far to the edge as she could in order to see how they would react, controlling people's emotions in order to get a rise in response out of them, being able to dictate people's behaviors and attitudes and get a rise out of people. People who are borderline love attention, whether positive or negative. They love that rise, response, and reaction approach. They love to drive fury and rage out of people. It gives them a sense of power and a sense of control. So when you combine that with schizophrenic behavior, which is that fear-based behavior of everybody's out to get me, you create a very complex imbalance in someone's mind. And so if you are a normal, rational person and you can see that and you can kind of like, hey, this doesn't make me feel good, this doesn't look good, this isn't right. That's why I like more so advocate on behalf of Kanye. And I know people be like, why are you advocating on behalf of Kanye? It's because I first of all, I don't think Kanye is borderline. I think Kanye may have other issues and Kim knows what those triggers are. And I think that if you are a well person, if you're well, you should be conscious of the fact that this person is unwell. And you have an obligation, especially if you live with this person in an intimate setting, to like be there for them and know, like, listen, this person is not right. I'm gonna take a step back from the situation. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like the delusional mind, when people go out of their way to prove a narrative to themselves that it that can be easily disproven, right? Like you can easily disprove the narrative, but they are so hell bent on proving it to be true. You have to walk away from those people. You have to step away from that situation because you don't know what that person will do to prove themselves to be correct or to gain the advantage in the situation. If you guys watch that episode, the series with Anna Delvey, what did she do? She used, first of all, Anna Delvey, in my opinion, was absolutely borderline personality, right? She used manipulative, conniving tactics in order to drive behaviors out of other people. Whatever it was the boyfriend. She wanted the money. She used that damsel in distress behavior in order to get him to pay for everything. Oh, my father will pay you back. I don't have it right now. I can't afford it. He paid for everything. What did he want from her though? He wanted affiliation, association, and acceptance. So there's always an exchange between the borderline personality and their victim. There's always a dynamic and an exchange. And Adelvi wanted his money. She wanted to his affection. And in exchange, he wanted her acceptance. He wanted something from her too. He wanted her ability to convince people to buy into her narrative, right? Because she helped him get all of this different money from these different funding sources. She had the gift of gab. That's a borderline trait. There's a quid pro quo. There's an exchange, a benefit, a controlling, a manipulation of the mind. And I can use Anna Delvey to explore her in many different situations with all of them. The same way she manipulated and controlled the journalist to create the story by calling her fat. She knew that the journalist was struggling with an identity crisis. She was struggling to repair her image after she had been berated in because of that story she put out. So what did Anna Delvey do? Made her fight for her acceptance. That's what a borderline person does. They figure out what your weakness is and they exploit it. That is the quintessential design of borderline personality disorder. And so if you come across people like that, the best thing you can do for yourself is get the fuck away from them. Unless you constantly want to be in a cycle of gaslighting, emotional abuse, and potentially violence. Because while the schizophrenic isn't necessarily violent, a borderline can absolutely become violent. Absolutely can become violent. And what a borderline personality wants most out of any situation is revenge. They want revenge. They want to win and they want to have revenge. That is the two motivating factors of a borderline personality. So unless you want to be the on the receiving end of that revenge, then you might want to make some different decisions about how you engage with these people. And so when you come across somebody and they love to gaslight, they love to like convince you of a narrative that's just not simply true. They're in a constant state of victimhood. They love to be the damsel in distress and be rescued. They love they love public perception and public opinion. They thrive. They actually are their best selves in toxicity because their mind is so chaotic that they feel most safe in toxic spaces. They feel most safe in toxic spaces because there's so much going on in their mind. There's so much going on in their mind. So when you see somebody like that and you are a well person, you have you have the duty to perform. You have the duty to either stay and participate or walk away from that situation because there is no length that a borderline will not go to in order to be the ultimate winner in the situation, up to and including ultimate acts. It is different. It's different. So that's my thought on the delusional mind. And let me know down below if you had anybody in your life who's experienced any of these characteristics, what you did about it, how you responded to it, and whether or not you think, you know, what would you do in that situation if you experienced somebody like that, I guess is what I'm saying. Thanks for checking into the live. You know how I slide through. Talk to you guys later. Bye.